Welcome to the Milk and Meat Podcast, a verse-by-verse Bible study designed to help you grow deeper no matter where you are in your journey with Christ.
Well, welcome to part 2 of our podcast, kind of going over 1 Corinthians 4, 8 through 13. If you haven't listened to part 1 of this, go and listen to it again. I have to stop in the middle of it because if not, I would start screaming and yelling, and ain't nobody need to hear that. And so instead, we kind of have two different parts here. I'm going to read the scriptures again, and then we're going to go into verse 14 to help us understand it better. So Paul in verse 8 starts, "Already you have all you want, already you have become rich. Without us you have become kings, and would that you did reign so that we might share the rule with you. For I think that God has exhibited us apostles as last of all, like men sentenced to death. Because we have become a spectacle to the world, to angels and to men. We are fools for Christ's sake, but you are wise in Christ. We are weak, but you are strong. You are held in honor, but we in disrepute. To the present hour we hunger and thirst. We are poorly dressed and buffeted and homeless, and we labor working with our own hands. When reviled, we bless. When persecuted, we endure. When slandered, we entreat. We have become and are still like the scum of the world, the refuse of all things." Now, you probably picked up on some verbiage in this that sounds really familiar, or at least I hope it sounds familiar, because a lot of this is playing off of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes. And so I encourage you to go read Matthew chapter 5, verses 3 through 12, and you can look at the Beatitudes and how Jesus is Paul is kind of setting the church at Corinth against what Jesus taught on the Sermon on the Mount. Whenever he said, blessed are those who are poor, blessed are those who are hunger, blessed are those who are thirsty. And what's happened is the church at Corinth has been concerned with getting their wants, having their money, having their nice homes, worried about their reputation. And what's happened is that has taken place and taken the place of the gospel. And Paul is reminding them, you need to be gospel-centered, and that means you can't be focused on your wants and your desires. You need to be Christ-centered, which means you can't be you-centered. And so I hope you got a chance to kind of listen to that first podcast and to pray about it. I hope you can go and read Matthew 5 through 13, 5, 3 through 12, so you can get kind of that comparison. The Gospel of Matthew would have been something that the church at Corinth readily knew and could share, and so they would have been familiar with where Paul was coming from. And I imagine there was some conviction happening at this moment as they read this. And I know for me personally, there's conviction when I read the Beatitudes, but also whenever I come over here and I compare my life with that of the church at Corinth. And I see that my life looks a little too much like the church at Corinth, and not what Jesus spoke at the Beatitudes, and not what Paul is saying the apostles are. And so we must live our life gospel-centered, and not just the way we've created our Christian life to be. It should be Christ-centered in focus. But I want to pick up in 14 because we're going to see why Paul is being so stern on this, why he desires this for them. He says, "I do not write these things to make you ashamed, but to admonish you as my beloved children." That's beautiful. You see, Paul was there when the church at Corinth began. He was there when so many of these people turned to Christ. He was there from the beginning. And now he sees what's happened from the beginning until now is that they've kind of gone away from the idea of surrendering their lives to Christ. They've kind of gone away from the idea of being centered on the truth of Jesus Christ. And they've become self-focused and they've become materialistic. And he says, I'm telling you this. I'm yelling at you. I'm getting frustrated, and I'm getting this way, not because I'm angry and not because I want to hurt you, but simply because you are my child and I love you. You see, we're told in scriptures that God is going to punish those and discipline those he loves because they're his children. And Paul's saying, you're like a child to me. I've seen you grow and I want you to continue to grow. And so I want to encourage you, when you see a pastor or a Bible study teacher or even a fellow Christian who is just kind of getting upset and like saying, no, we've got to do it this way, most of the time it's because their heart is that they love you and they want the best for you. And so when you read this, he's saying, I don't write these things. I'm not getting onto you because I'm ashamed. I'm not getting onto you because I can't believe you would do something so stupid. I'm writing you these things because we all do stupid things, but God desires better for us. And so I want to encourage you, when you correct somebody, do it not from embarrassment. When you admonish somebody, don't do it from trying to prove that you're right and they're wrong. Do it from this position of somebody who loves somebody and wants to see better for them. And I promise you that your correction and your rebuke and your admonishment will go so much further. I know it has for me. I've had people in my life who have spoken into it and helped correct and guide me. And when people did that angrily and hurtful and because they felt they were better, it doesn't go well. But when somebody will speak into your life simply out of love, it will go such a long ways. For those of you who are parents, do this for your children. If they embarrass you in the store, that's not near as bad as if they live a life away from Christ. And so as you're parenting, if you're a youth group leader, don't worry about how they behave in the sense of, oh man, they're representing me as a youth pastor. Worry about how they behave as they represent Christ. So admonish them not in embarrassment, not in control, but in love. I want to thank you so much for listening to the Milk and Meat podcast. Our prayer is that this podcast will be a springboard for you to grow deeper in your relationship with Christ. If you have any questions or comments, you can email us at themilkandmeat@gmail.com. Make sure you like our Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube pages.